Welcome back to another episode of the VBFA Podcast. Today I am honored to sit here with Pastor Cody, our youth pastor. Really excited to have you back.
Dude, I'm excited
It seems like you were just here.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, the bar's pretty high. Pastor Zach came in here and killed it the last episode. Did really great, so we'll try to top that today.
I'll do my best. I'm pretty awkward at times, though. So.
Well, really glad you're here, but I started off with Zach, and I'll do the same with you. Tell us about Pastor Cody. You know, we see you on a Sunday, maybe in the sound booth, maybe during the announcements, meet and greet. You might be sitting with the kids on the front row with the youth, or on a Wednesday night back in the youth room. But outside of church, who is Pastor Cody? What do you like to do? What's he like?
Man, that's a great question. I'll be honest. Naturally, I'm very much introverted, so I'm okay with being by myself sometimes.
Yeah.
Honestly, if I had a couple hours in the middle of the day not to do anything, and I had $20 in my pocket or something like that, I go antiquing. And I know that sounds like an old man answer, but I really enjoy going around and just looking at just old stuff. And the more I do it, and the older I get, the more I see some of the stuff that I grew up with. And I'm like, I'm starting to get old. Cause
it's like, I don't need to buy this. I have it in my closet at home.
Yeah, I played with this in the 90s. Yeah,
I bet that is a weird feeling.
I really do. I enjoy doing that. Me and Lauren, we've done that for several years since we've been married. We're just like going and looking at stuff, and even stuff that we don't need. It's like, that was cool. It was just fun, free. Yeah. You know.
And it seems like the area we live in, there's a lot of good places that you could find just like a gold mine of things.
I've talked to several of the guys in the church that go with their wives and stuff, and Springfield's got some great stuff up in Missouri. Really great places up there. If you're ever in Branson or whatever, stop by. A couple of those places up there are really good. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I love doing that, and I like movies. I like sitting down and watching movies, even old movies and stuff that I've never seen before. I like to collect stuff for a little while. I think I'm like kind of a little bit of a pack rat. I like to collect things until I get tired of doing it. Like I did like old flashlights for a little while, and old cameras. They're cheap and easy to find. You can find a bunch of different kinds. I did like Funko Pops for a little while. I'm in the middle of collecting DeWalt tools right now, so it gives Lauren an excuse to tell me to build something around the house.
You are the DeWalt guy.
Yeah,
you're loyal.
I try to be. I'm not good at it, but
you're
I'm very loyal to DeWalt. Yeah. Me and Pastor Colby have some conversations about DeWalt and Milwaukee every once in a while, because he's a Milwaukee guy.
Yeah.
So
obviously DeWalt tops.
Obviously, I mean
Milwaukee.
Obviously they have a NASCAR car. DeWalt wins.
And you may know this off the top of your head, and if you do, props to you. But if you had to guess, how many DeWalt tools do you have?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. There's a wall of them now.
Quite a few.
I don't know. Yeah, there's quite a few. Lauren keeps giving me a hard time about how many tools that I have, but birthday and Christmas money, man, that goes a long way whenever you're buying some DeWalt tools. So
get you a Home Depot gift card.
It does, and then when she was pregnant with Boston, it gave me a chance, because I was working on his nursery and stuff, and so it gave me a chance.
Well, you need the tools.
Right, you need the tools. I can't do this without it.
Right.
So,
if you want a crib, if you want the shelves, you've got to have
Most
the tools.
recently, I wound up building a fort for the boys out in the yard, and I can't remember if I got anything new for that or not, but at least gave me a chance to use them and stuff, and I really do. I enjoy that, just tinkering, and I'm not great at it by any means. I'm not a carpenter at all, but I enjoy doing some of that stuff whenever I get the chance to just try my hand at it. So,
So you're a jack of all trades. You've got hands in everything.
A master of none. Yeah, jack of all, but master of none.
Master of none. Yeah. Well, so you're the youth pastor at Van Buren First Assembly.
Sure, yeah.
And how long have you been doing that? What year is this?
So June 16th will be 10 years that we've been on staff at the church. We came on staff in 2013. I got my credentials February of that year, and we got hired in June as middle school pastors, and we were middle school pastors for a couple years. And then 2015, the same year that Pastor Britt came, we transitioned as high school and middle school pastors, kind of oversaw everything at that time. And so, man, 10 years.
I bet it feels like that sometimes, but to think about that, I couldn't have told you 10 years.
Yeah, man, 10 years, a decade feels like a really long time. And I look back and I think like 8 of those years have been with Pastor Britt being here, and
That's
man,
crazy
they
to
have
think about.
flown by. The last 8 years, we've went through a lot as a church and as a staff, and we've had so many great memories of fun things and events and ministries that the church has done and stuff. But man, it is hard to believe that it's been 10 years of us being on staff. So
that is crazy.
We've seen a lot of students. You and Pastor Colby both were in our youth ministries. And,
we barely got in. We got in.
You got in.
I think
at the
we were
very
senior
end,
in high school when you.
Yeah, man,
took
that
over
was.
that.
I'll tell you, that year, that was one of my favorite years of youth ministry, of you guys being in there, because you guys were just so excited about what God was doing. And I've told somebody recently that there's a lot of similarities between that year and this year that we're in right now, because you guys were just so active of reaching out to people and bringing your friends to youth. And we saw a lot of new growth, a lot of people coming and getting saved and stuff. And there's a lot of similar personality traits that the kids have right now, because they're gung-ho about it, and so that was a fun year, and thankfully the Lord has refreshed a lot of things. It's easy to get stale in ministry over time, and this has been a really refreshing year. So
that's really cool. I know there's a lot of exciting things going on at the church, and I see those similarities too. I went through the youth group, was a part of that as a student, and now I'm the high school boys small group leader. And so being in there every Wednesday night with them and thinking, oh my gosh, I think this is going to be year 7 or 8 that I've been out of high school, and to think about that, it's a little weird. And for some people listening, that's nothing, but
this May's my 16-year high school reunion.
That's insane.
And it's not a reunion, but I've been out for 16 years, and that will make you feel old right there.
That's crazy.
And I know a lot of the older listeners are probably thinking like, I wish I was still that young or whatever.
Just 16?
But having a couple boys now that are under the age of 4 will make you feel old. So
that's crazy.
But so anyways,
just like Pastor Zach, you have 2 boys, or you have 2 kids. You have 2 boys, Boston and Briggs. What's life been like that since they've came on the scene? How has that changed with having 2?
I'll say that we've done our best to try and prepare Pastor Colby for having 2 kids out of nowhere, which we don't even know what it's going to be like for him, and he's going to have stories to tell compared to us, but nobody can prepare you for life as a parent. And I told somebody in our men's small group the other night that we went through like birthing classes and stuff whenever we were getting ready to have Boston and stuff. And like, there's no amount of training or books to read or anything like that can prepare you for that moment that your kid comes out and you're now responsible for a human life and keeping them alive.
Right.
And if you're thinking about kids or you're about to have kids, I would just say get as much sleep as you can right now, because once they're in bed with you every night, or sick, they've been sick the last couple weeks and stuff, and you just don't get any rest. It's just a lifestyle of exhaustion for a little while, but it's fun, man, because just as exhausted as you are, they can wind up just saying, something so sweet, or they can be screaming one minute and tell you, "Daddy, I love you," the next minute.
Makes it worth it.
Yeah, it does. It does.
That's cool.
It makes it worth it. I love being a dad.
Yeah.
So
what was Pastor Cody like growing up? Like what were you like growing up? What role did faith play in your childhood? Your family life, and how did that bring you to who you are now?
Well, man, it probably depends on who you ask. If you ask my mom, she would probably side with Lauren and say that I was very much like Boston was, and I came to church kicking and screaming.
Well, see, now as an adult, you're not like that.
Yeah, I don't know if I just got it all out before my consciousness just came to me or whatever, because I do not remember being like that at all.
Yeah.
My first memory, I think, was like 4 years old or something, and at my 4-year-old birthday party, it was a Barney birthday party, and I don't remember acting out like that at all. Yeah. And honestly, I don't even remember getting that many spankings as a kid. I felt like I was a really good kid. And maybe that's just my subconscious, like telling me that I was or something. I don't know.
Blocking those memories.
Yeah, it's suppressing all the beatings that my mom gave me in the hallway of church or something. I don't know. But Man, I was always a kid. I've never liked confrontation. I was always a kid that I'd rather be behind the scenes. I didn't like getting called on in class or anything like that. My parents basically forced me to play sports and stuff. I wanted to play baseball so bad. I did. And to this day, I really wish I would have played baseball. But we went to tryouts at Huckleberry Field here in Van Buren. And we got there, and I left my glove at home. And so my dad was mad at me. And so that I was already stressed out from that. And then, like, the kids were all the kids were acting crazy. They were climbing on the fences and just... They're acting like kids were. They were excited. And in that moment, I was just like so much anxiety. I was like, I can't do it. I got to go home. Right. And so I didn't wind up playing. And it wasn't until like 7th grade I played basketball. And I did really good sitting on the bench. I got like, I was the kid that like a minute, 2 minutes left in the game, we're up by 40. I get to go in and play.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you score or not.
It doesn't matter. And I remember one time getting the ball, the rebound, and just throwing it up and missing and catching it, and then I tried like 4 times in a row. I was so embarrassed. I hated it.
And the worst thing about that as a kid, because I was in that role in basketball. I played baseball, but basketball was kind of foreign to me. Didn't matter if you played for 30 seconds the whole game, if you scored 0 points or 20. Your parents, grandparents are like, you did amazing. Yeah. That was the best game you've ever played.
Oh, man. I got to tell you this, because this relates to this so well, and Pastor Zach will wind up laughing about this. But right after Pastor Zach came, the dude's just ridiculously talented anyway.
Yes,
the dude can just sing, and he can preach, and it really makes me sick.
Plays every instrument.
Yes. Oh, man. I'm so jealous of him at times. And my grandparents were, and they'll probably laugh at this, but my grandpa called me after he had preached one day, and he was like, yeah, man, that guy, he can sing, he can preach or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, he can, Papa. And he's like, but you know what? You did good on that meet and greet. You can do that meet and greet really good. And I'm like, wow, thanks, Papa.
Thank you.
Yeah, because I stumble over my words all the time in meet and greet, and I'm just terrible about it. Like I said, like, this is not, for me to be in ministry and be in front of people and stuff, it's not something that comes naturally to me. But
it's got to be God.
It does. I hated school growing up. Yeah. I had some good friends and stuff, and we all helped each other with our homework and stuff. Right. I was not a school person. I was ready to be out of school. I wasn't a huge college fan. I'd rather been with my friends or working or something like that. So... yeah, that was me growing up. That was we raced cars. We went to the racetrack and stuff. I raced for a few years until I got interested in girls and got to start going on dates and stuff like that. So that was me as a kid. So
at what point during all that did you maybe begin to feel God's call to ministry? And at what point did you maybe surrender to that certain point that you were like, this is what I got to do?
Well, I'll tell you. My mom's been pastor secretary. I don't know, 20-something years now, ever since I was a kid, 6, 7 years old. And so I've always been exposed to church or the behind the scenes of church and stuff.
Right.
And, believe it or not, I had never, all the way until the point I felt called to the ministry when I was 19 years old, I had never even considered the thought that, I guess I didn't even think about being a pastor as a career choice. And I went to college to be an architect. I went to UFAS over in Fort Smith and went to classes, and I enjoyed it at first because I like to draw. I like computer design, graphic design, all that kind of stuff. I love that sort of thing. And so I really enjoyed the first few semesters of like doing CAD and Engineering 1 when we were drawing stuff out and drafting and stuff. And I enjoyed that. But the longer that I was going to college, the more I realized like every class that I would take, or the more I realized that this is a part of being an architect, I just kept thinking like, this is fun, but man, there was something missing. There was just something unsatisfying about it to me. And I kept going to classes at the time, and during that time I was obviously in church and just kind of listened to the pastor preach and everything, and just in this really kind of up in the air, juggling kind of thing. Like, God, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And then that's when this moment of just kind of questioning, like, God, is this it? Is there anything else I'm supposed to be doing with my life? Is there a purpose, or is this the purpose that you have for me? And it was in that moment that I kind of realized, like, that was in the moment that I felt called into ministry. I was 19 years old. I was at the altar at church one night, and my friend had just been called into the ministry just several months beforehand, and I think it was him being called in the ministry that kind of caused me to think, like, oh, this is something I could do. Yeah. And it seems odd for a 19-year-old to finally kind of have that, aha or light bulb kind of moment hit you at that moment. But I just remember praying at the altar and just saying, like, God, I will do anything you want me to do. And I was so emotional at that time, and I was just praying and crying to God. And it was in that moment that I just kind of felt God just like, yeah, I want you to be in the ministry. And it was that moment of sacrifice that really broke me. That was just like, okay, God, I'll do it. I don't know what all that looks like, and I don't know what that transition from, college to, Bible college looks like, but I'll do whatever you want me to do, God.
That's amazing.
And that was a life-changing moment for me right
then.
Like
that's
when I really felt like now I'm living out what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool to see people like yourself and even Pastor Zach. Obviously, the details are different, but you had something planned out. You were going into architecture. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you do a 180. Yeah. People can be called in high school or junior high. You hear stories of Brother Brankle that it's in our church
I love that
has been pastoring and preaching since he was a young boy and knew that's what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, he was like a pastor at 15 years old.
It's insane. Wow. It's insane. But with people like yourself, you had a whole plan of what you were going to do, and you just had to kind of you see or you hear in sermons people talk about drop your plans or drop your burdens and turn to the Lord and run to His plan. Yeah. But to actually do that in your life and not just be like a one-liner in a sermon, but like you put it into practical application in your own life and you live it out. Yeah, I'm sure that's got to be extremely tough to give up, architecture, salary and benefits and maybe travel and different things like that for the ministry.
Yeah, Lauren's given me a hard time just jokingly in the past of just, if she would have married an architect rather than a youth pastor, we'd, have a whole lot more money or whatever. But, yeah, man, I tell you, that's where like the rubber meets the road is in a situation like that where you've got literally tens of thousands of dollars invested in a future in another career, and it's like, okay, God, I'll do that. I don't know what it looks like, and Bible college and changing all that stuff that I've put hours into college already, basics and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, okay, is this really God? That's it. That's kind of in the moment. It's like, okay, God, I gotta be sure that
it's a big choice.
Yeah. And so, there's been days that, have been difficult and stuff, but it's like, you know what? It was God. It was the right thing to do.
Yeah. Well, and you hear Pastor talk about it pretty often, actually, about how we don't live in this world's economy. We don't have to choose. We don't have to choose to live in this economy. Sure. We can live under God's economy. And so it's like to see someone like yourself that surrendered to God's plan and lives under His economy in a position that He wants you to flourish in, and you're blessed beyond your wildest dreams with, your family, your wife, your two kids, a great ministry, kids that you're able to pour into. It's just really awesome to see people surrender like that.
It's rewarding. It's rewarding.
I'm sure. And so I asked Pastor Zach this question too, but we see pastors every week. Sometimes more often than that. But you see a pastor as someone that is so close to God that there's no way they could ever feel down. There's no way they could ever have anxiety or be depressed or fight depression or some of those type of feelings, or just be in a spiritually dry season. I'm just going to assume that you experience those things from time to time.
Man. We all
from
do.
time to time.
Absolutely.
The title doesn't exclude you from sure. those attacks.
Yeah.
So what do you do just for yourself? Yeah. You know, if you find yourself in a spiritually dry season, you're not in the Word like you should be, or you just come to church and maybe you're just not into it. You're not feeling it. And how do you attack that? How do you I think as a Christian sometimes we play defense and just kind of play into the feelings and the oppression maybe that the enemy's fighting us with, instead of going on the offense and attacking back.
Yeah.
So how do you go about that?
Well, man, at first I'd say that in those times that I've gotten to that place, number one, I've noticed like warning signs. I would say there's times where you can tell, okay, you're just tired, or you're wore out, or you're not where you need to be. You take it out on your kids or your wife, or you're just not feeling it during church, or different things like that, and it comes out in different ways like that. And so it's imperative that you wind up catching that, and letting your body and spiritually letting the Holy Spirit talk to you and tell you like, hey, that's something that you need to correct. And I'll tell you, there was actually 2021 was, man, I went through a really difficult season of just feeling like, I don't know, I wasn't good enough as a youth pastor anymore. I really struggled during that time to feel like, is my time as youth pastor up? Is it time for me to step into another role? Is my time at our church? Is it, what's God trying to tell me?
Yeah, if
here?
you were out, you're welcome.
I went, man, and it was really difficult because, it would be little things that the devil would wind up really, working me over with, of a night where there wasn't a lot of kids there, or things just didn't hit right. Yeah. You'd plan out the whole night, and kids just weren't into it. Everybody was wore out, and after a few weeks of those in a row, or something like that, where your creative juices aren't flowing, or you don't really feel like maybe God's speaking to you in those times, it can be trying. And so you got to recenter, and you got to take yourself back to the place where you remember what God called you to do. And you remember in that moment, like, God called me to this.
Yeah.
Not only in the fun times where kids are bringing people and the youth group's flourishing and everything's going great, but even in the really dry times or the valley times where you got to press through and figure out what God wants next for your ministry or you as a person. And I felt like those are the times where it's been difficult for me. And I have to really work on getting back into the Word of God, or really, really trying to get something out of a worship service. And so I would say in those times where I've been exhausted, or I've been wore out, or I haven't been where I needed to be with God, I have to just refocus and recenter myself on, like, okay, God called me to do this. And, more than just my calling as a youth pastor, God's called me to, be a disciple of His, to follow Him, just to be a Christian.
Right.
And that's what I have to do in those difficult times, is just kind of refocus. And sometimes, man, I'll do something just really practical, just, listen to, playlist on Spotify or something, and just kind of focus in on God and get away from it all and turn the phone off and the notifications. I love the news, and I love talk radio and stuff. And sometimes I got to turn all that stuff off and just like listen to what the Lord wants to say for a little while, instead of all the chaos that's going on around me. So,
Someone that God put into my life when I was living in Dallas, and I'm really thankful for him. He talked to me one day about how God created this whole man, and if there are parts missing, and he drew out this circle, and he referenced it as a wheel, and then he broke it into like almost pie pieces. And he's like, this is your spiritual man, this is your physical man, this is your emotional man, and a few other pieces. And he said, if you take care of your physical man and your mental side of your person, that's good, and you can be really flourishing in those areas. But when that wheel goes to turn, it doesn't turn perfectly like God created it, because you're lacking in the other areas. And so for you to talk about, warning signs or being burnt out, it's like, sometimes we can over spiritualize. I've got to push and push and push to where you're not your best, and you're not where, God could use you fully, because you're not taking care of the whole man. And I try to, live by that, and that really stuck with me, that, if I'm going to be able to speak into the kids that I help with you in youth, I've got to be the total man that God's called me to be. And that's taking care of every area of my life.
Well, I mean, there's always somebody that's, looking up to you or relying on you, or that needs you, to speak into their life or be there for them, or just be consistent. And, I don't ever want to be a good Christian just because I have to be, or because I get paid to be. I want to be a good Christian because I want to be, because I love God. And, it definitely does change the dynamic of, leading students. It changed my dynamic a lot whenever we got married, and then now that we have kids and stuff, because it's like people are relying on me, and I don't ever want to be a good dad or be a good Christian just because that's what I'm supposed to do. But I want to do it because I enjoy doing it, and I do. I love being a follower of Christ. So
that's awesome. There's so many things, even just in the youth, but as a whole in our church, what is the most exciting thing to you that's going on currently? It could be a ministry, something we're starting up.
I love this question, and we actually talked about this a little bit at our winter retreat back in December. And man, my answer, the kids probably feel like I'm a broken record right now because I keep talking about it so much. But man, I am so proud of our kids that have started these Jesus clubs and their campus clubs at school. They have blown me away with the just the passion that they have brought to it. And it's exciting to see kids like take their faith and put it in action, and actually start to reach out to their friends and stuff. Because I was an introvert whenever I was in high school and stuff, man, I really struggled to, just be a good witness at times, or stand up for my faith. I didn't do things wrong. I mean, I didn't always live for God. I made some stupid mistakes and listened to music I shouldn't have, and all the dumb things you do whenever you're in high school. But I never was really outspoken about my faith. I mean, I think kids probably knew I was a Christian, but it wasn't like, I'm a Christian. I didn't walk around with a placard, around my neck or anything like that. And so to see kids do that now, that was one of the things that really I felt impressed upon me whenever I felt called into ministry to do, specifically student ministry, is to help kids walk out this faith, and to see it go beyond the walls of a church, and to see it in their school campuses, and them standing up and them planning, and they've done it all. I mean, they've asked a few questions here and there, but they're killing it. They are modeling the Acts 2 church, and it's incredible to see. And I know we talk a lot about Jesus Club, but like Reed at Cedarville, man, he's got Youth Alive going up there, and he's leading a prayer group and stuff with his group, and so
it's amazing.
Man, it's awesome to see.
It's spreading.
Man,
it's how many schools are we at now? Like 4?
Yeah, four schools right now that I know of for sure that they're doing something weekly with their friends, with their peers, inviting people. It's awesome to see, man. And that's, I talked a little bit earlier about just how refreshing this year has been. Man, I needed that. I needed something to see, like, hey, these are some wins that we're accomplishing in our ministry. And we're not just showing up and, playing dodgeball and feeding kids pizza week after week, but man, they're getting what we're putting out to them. And it's awesome to see. I'm really, really proud of them.
It is encouraging. And I mean, you talked about being in school, and you weren't the person that was, having signs or starting clubs or whatever. And I can say the same thing, and graduating as a senior 7 years ago, all my high school, junior high, middle school career, I didn't do any of that. Yeah. And to see these kids now do that is very encouraging, especially just in the cultural shift that we've seen in the last couple of years. It's become even harder than what I thought it was as a kid. It doesn't even compare. Oh, man. And to see them stand up and be so bold with their faith, but more of just like what the gospel is supposed to be. We have the good news. We have the answer that you're looking for. You're hurting. You're depressed. You have family issues. You feel a void in your life. We have the answer, and that's what they're simply doing with the Jesus Club. And I love it. Yeah,
there's been a lot of talk of revival lately, and that this is what I feel like is revival.
I agree.
To see kids do something with their faith, that's what revival is.
When it leaves the parking lot on Fayetteville Road. Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah.
I saw a quote, and this might be an answer to another question later on or something, but saw a quote a couple weeks ago that, man, I cannot get off my mind, and it stuck with me so much. But it says, if you seek revival, you'll find performance, but if you seek Jesus, you'll find revival.
I like that. Man, I've never heard that.
Yeah, it really hit me. I'm like, something so profound and so simple. It's like, wow, that is what it is all about, man. It's not just about, having great church services all the time. But whenever I truly seek after Jesus Christ, then that's when he'll change the way that I talk to my friends and how I interact with people and how I love my wife and how I show compassion to other people.
That's amazing.
So,
yeah. Well, to wrap it up, if you would, we've started a segment. I want you to speak directly to those that are listening to the episode today, and give them a word of wisdom. What is on your heart today that the Lord's speaking to you that you felt for a while, that may be something, it might be new, but what is like speaking the loudest in your heart right now? What do you want to leave with our viewers as we wrap this up?
That's a really hard question to ask a person. And I knew this question was coming, and I probably should have saved that quote for this particular answer. But man, I tell you, I don't know. It's tough. If you're planning on having kids, get all the sleep you can while you have. That would be my non-spiritual answer. Because that's the thing that's kept me up for the last 3 years.
Yeah.
But
so Pastor Colby, if you're listening,
Pastor Colby, if you're listening, get all the rest you can. No, man, I don't know. Maybe a spiritual word of wisdom. If you feel like God's calling you to do it, don't be afraid to take a step of faith. Don't be afraid to take a risk. Do something out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
For me, one of the most difficult things about feeling called into the ministry in that moment, whenever I was praying, wasn't necessarily what am I going to do, with my college that I've already been going all these classes and stuff like that. More than anything for me, it was kind of like a Moses moment. Not that I'm comparing myself to Moses by any means, but Moses wasn't a public speaker, and he stuttered and stuff. And so for me in that moment, I really related to him whenever I was, maybe accepting the call of just, this is not something that comes naturally to me. I love the behind the scenes of church stuff, but I do not like getting up in front of people. I hate hearing myself speak. I don't like any of that kind of stuff. Yeah. But you know what? It's like, if this is what God's called me to do, and this is it, and it is what God has called me to do, then you know what? I'll push past some of that uncomfort, and do what He's called me to do. So if God's calling you to do something, take a risk. Step out of your comfort zone. Break out of that shell, and do what you feel like He's called you to do.
That's awesome. Yeah. Man, thanks so much for sitting down with me
today. It's been fun, man.
I've enjoyed it.
It'd be
easy been a fun talk.
To sit here and talk to you for a few hours, but I know the listeners don't want that. So.
Well, thank you again. And if you're listening today and you're a family that's looking for a church and you have middle school or high school age kids, you should definitely come try us out at VBFA Church. We have an awesome youth group, and all the other ministries are great too. But today we've had the youth pastor on. Thank you guys for listening, and see you next time.